This is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. Check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. You can consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all of your questions answered, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little differently. Again, always consult your medical professionals before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you.
Welcome back to Cast 11 by signalsaz.com. I'm Megan McClanahan, and with me this morning, I've got Brian from AZ Metabolic Health. Brian, welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Great to be back.
So one of my first questions is, tell us where you're located.
I'm located in the Crossings.
Okay.
Where all the other medical doctors are in that area. Yeah, in Prescott.
Right.
Yeah.
My next question is, who here is your target audience? Who is your prime patient?
My prime patient is someone who struggled with health. Maybe they struggle with weight. They may struggle with high blood pressure, diabetes, even family members with dementia and Parkinson's. Patients who are invested that want to have better health. If you just want the magic shot or the magic pill, I'm not the person. Because a lot of people these days just want the shot, or they want something that will say, okay, I don't want to change anything I'm doing, but I want to have the benefits. And so it really is an investment. And I love patients who are self-starters or that do their own. They come in and they have articles that they've read. They go, Doc, can you read these? Now I have time to read those articles. And I can say, yeah, that's a good study, or it's not. And here's why. I love that. I love patients who are focused on their health and wanting to stay healthy and looking down the road of saying, okay, look, I have diabetes. I know what comes down the road. And if people are invested, they say, I can change my lifestyle. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's too much alcohol. Maybe it's smoking and, not exercising at all. And there's definitely benefits to all these things that are very clear for longevity.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest indicators for longevity, which surprised me, is muscle mass. So the more muscle mass people have, the longer they live, right?
Really?
Because muscle is very metabolically healthy tissue. So people with more muscle have lower insulin, because when you eat some cookies and you're working out, that sugar is going to go to your muscles. If you don't have muscles, the only place it gets stored is in the liver, in the fat cells. Right. And so muscle mass makes a huge difference. But the other problem is some people have a lot of muscle mass and they figure they could eat terrible food all the time and they can end up getting in trouble still. But it is very protective, believe it or not.
Wow. That's crazy. God, you learn so much every day. So one of my questions for you is, can you tell us how much you have the patient a say in their care? How important is that to you?
I'm very big on patient autonomy, meaning the patient makes a decision. I'm an advisor, and if I recommend a course of action and you don't want to do it or you don't feel comfortable with that, then we work together. Say, okay, given what's acceptable in your life, what can we do to get you better health? So having people, I think it's a good thing. some people choose a more meat eating diet. Some people want more of a vegan type diet. And you say, okay, what are the downfalls of each of those? And what can we do to maintain health, depending on what you're doing? And some people is just saying, hey, if you're smoking 2 packs a day, can we get down to 1 pack and start there? Right. Can we make a change and not drink soda every day? That's one of the biggest killers we have. And so can we just drink on the weekends, or can you limit it to 2 drinks instead of having 6 drinks when you see your friends? All those kind of things of what's acceptable in life, because ultimately we have to live our life and be happy and content.
Absolutely.
And so if those things are really important, we figure out ways around that. So adding in exercise, for instance, can overcome some of the bad parts of alcohol, those kind of things. So it's kind of looking and saying, okay, how much results do we want to have? And really, how sick are you coming in? Because if someone has full-blown diabetes and their sugars are 400, that's when you say we got to be more strict and get you healthier. If someone's healthy, all we have to do is maintain that. That's easy, but once you blow up your engine, it's harder to fix that.
It's that repair is where the big cost is.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So if I wanted to become one of your patients, how would I go about doing that?
Arizona Metabolic Health, that's probably the best way. My office manager, we answer our own phone calls. We don't have machines, and we don't have, you won't go through a whole computer
so you don't get
tree.
A bot.
So, and that's what I love about the medicine I do now, is because my patients have direct access to me. They can text me and say, hey, can you fill my medicine today? Send me an email, text. We have a great communication platform. So you'll get an answer that day. You're not going to wait. You're not going to have to call. It's sad. When I first moved here, I called the doctor's office And he said, your calls will be answered as soon as we can. If you keep calling, it's going to delay the time it takes us to get back to you. It's like, well, what does that tell you? That means they're not getting
They're
back to
not calling you
people.
back.
Because my people now, if they want to get in the same day or the next day, they can do that. So they don't have to call me at 10 at night and say, can you squeeze me in tomorrow somewhere? So they can wait till office hours, say, hey, I'll take care of you. I can see you at lunchtime.
Right.
I always leave openings for emergencies, things like that. So that's what I love, is that
That's wonderful.
we have time, and I'm not in a rush all the time trying to get people out the door. In the standard care that I was in for 18 years, I would have someone like, oh, I can help them, but I would put them before lunch, and then I would work through lunch, right? Because I'm trying to help that person.
Right.
And then what would happen is I get home at 8:00, 9:00 every night. So now I don't have to do that because I have time with that patient. It's a
Right.
scheduled time, and
Right.
usually it's half an hour or an hour appointments, and we have time to talk about anything, whatever's on your mind, stress, sleep, mom's sick, whatever it is that we can kind of help you with. And having the best people in town that I can work with also for counseling, if that's necessary, or nutrition or whatever it might be. It's amazing. It's amazing what we can accomplish if we look at the whole person.
Absolutely. What brought you to Prescott?
Well, in California, again, I was working a lot of hours, and I was in a really, really busy practice, and I wanted to slow down a bit. And I've come through here. Actually, one of my old partners was practicing here. She was in the system too, and she was getting burned out. And I said, I'm thinking about moving your way. And so now we share an office, which is nice. We have our own practices, but we're in the same office. And so it's really, really great. And I came here and I love the outdoors and mountain biking and going for hikes with my wife and my dogs in the morning. And I just love it. And I realized the effect that I've been talking about it for years, and I was almost a hypocrite and being stressed and working 18-hour days and telling everyone you need to relax. And a good friend of mine one day, we hadn't had dinner together in 2 years, and he was the best man at my wedding and I was the best man in his. And I was explaining how busy and how crazy it is. And he said, Brian, if you were your own patient, what would you tell yourself? And I said, yeah. And I really hit home because I said, you're right. Because I said, driving, he was in Orange County, which is a couple hours from me, but he's a pastor. So he works on the weekend. I work all week. And I said, I'm just really always busy. And so that's not good. You got to slow down at some point. And that's one thing I realized. We go for the mountain bike rides and we can relax a little bit. So I can do that before patients and get my exercise in and get in the outdoors and then work all day. That I love working too. So it all works out perfect. So I just love Prescott. I love the people here. My neighbors are friendly, everyone. And that's the kind of community I want to be a part of. I always thought it would be nice to be that doctor, that town, small town doctor type thing. And we have that here. So it's pretty amazing.
We do.
Yes.
We're very fortunate to have the small town community that we have here versus where you were at.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to be able to see you, to be able to slow down and take that personal touch to your patients and the care that you have. I've gotten to know you quite a bit, and I think it's wonderful. Right now, what is the most dire need that you see for your new patients that are coming in?
I think the most dire need is education, to sit down with your doctor and to be able to ask those questions, like whatever's bothering you, no matter what. Because, a lot of times it was the joke in the system where if you would talk to someone about their heartburn, headache, and all that stuff. And as you're putting your hand on the doorknob, they'll say, oh, by the way, I'm going through a divorce, or my mom died, or something like that. And the doctor would be upset. They go, I don't have time to deal with that. Well, I have time to deal with that right now, because if we can fix that, the stress that you're under, or maybe making some lifestyle changes, say, hey, let's see if we can get you 7 hours of sleep at night, those kind of things. And we have tons of modalities that are non-pharmaceutical that can help people.
Absolutely.
And so if we address those things, so if someone's sleeping, guess what? Their stress level gets better, right?
Oh, yeah.
And if you're not sleeping, you're hungry all the time and you eat more and you made bad. And this is all scientific, it's documented. So, and I knew that in residency when I was up all night on call in the intensive care unit. The next day, all of us were eating everything. So it's this combination of, and now studies, and I told my wife at the time, there's going to be studies that prove that, because I'm telling you, I watch everyone and it's insane. No one has any willpower the day after being up all night.
No. And I can understand that because my daughter is a phlebotomist at the hospital. And so her body has changed. She's up all night on her night shifts, and then she just wants to eat before she sleeps. And then she gets up and eats. And so I understand that. That makes total sense.
Yeah. And police and firemen, a lot of people have these night shifts, even if they're sleeping 8 hours. If you shift that, there's consequences to that. So it's kind of figuring out, how do we balance that out as much as possible in your life? If you're stuck in that situation, what else can we fix? Right? Not drinking before you go to bed. You'll have better sleep, believe it or not.
Right.
There's so many little things that we can tweak that people start getting better, and when they do, it's great. So now I love looking at labs, because I'll see someone that was diabetic, full blown, just yesterday. full-blown diabetic, now in the normal range.
Yes.
And they're asking me like, what do I tell my life insurance? Am I diabetic or not? And so
That's
now we have
wonderful.
debate over that, because if you change your lifestyle and you resolve diabetes, are you just in remission? Are you cured? Right. Well, if you go back to your old ways, you're going to get
It's
it
gonna
again,
come
because
right
that's
back.
what got it for you. And so it's amazing to see that, where people have hope. That you were asking what my perfect patient, someone who really wants to invest in their health. And they're your partner. We're partners in that, and say, how can I help you? And then we work together. And I use continuous glucose monitors so we can see what your sugars do. And the education, it's amazing what we can do for education. And when you see it, and you actually say, oh, when I have sushi, what happens to my sugars? Or if I have salmon, what happens? And people will change their nutrition based on that. And so, as a matter of fact, it's funny enough, a good friend of mine he's Italian, he goes, I'll just die early. I'm okay with being diabetic. And so I said, let's just wear one of these continuous glucose monitors for a while. And I just got his labs back, and I called him, and I was teasing him. I said, what happened? Your sugars are normal finally. Finally, he said, that stupid thing you gave me, it's like, I can't take it. I see it, and I'm like, okay, it's not worth it. Because when you see your sugars go up, you think, this isn't good for me, and I know it. So then he started losing taste for those bad things that were, and then he just naturally gravitated without any input from me, right? Which is amazing. So it's those kind of things. I love seeing that,
That's
where
so
you
cool.
know that he's getting healthier and feeling better. He's like, oh, my joints don't hurt, my mood's better. All these things are interrelated, which is amazing.
It is so cool. It is so cool. It is amazing just how simple lifestyle changes can affect your health. Can you tell me a little bit more about metabolic health?
So metabolic health, it really comes down to the cellular level. Like our mitochondria are the little energy centers of our cells. And so when they get overburdened by eating too much processed food, sugar, you get a lot of inflammation that comes from that. And ultimately what happens is insulin, we start losing our ability for insulin to do its job. And what insulin's job is, the main job it has a lot of metabolic activities. But the main thing it does is lower sugar. So as an example, if you had oatmeal and bananas and orange juice and toast and a pancake this morning, your sugars go straight up, and your body says, oh, sugar's too high, and insulin goes up to get rid of the sugar, and the sugar dips down low, and people say, oh, I get hypoglycemic before lunch, right? So I have to eat carbs all day. So they're eating snacks all day long. But if that same person just had eggs for breakfast or something with protein, their sugars stay flat all day. And so you don't get this big excursion up and down, because those things affect mood, panic attacks. And I've seen it all from a hypoglycemia, but it's reactive. So what happens is, the analogy would be, if you came to me and you're diabetic or alcoholic, and you go, okay, Brian, look, I'm drinking 12 drinks a night and I can't get drunk. I want to go have fun with my husband. What should I do? The standard approach right now is saying, well, if you can't get drunk with 12, have 13, 14, 16, keep going up until you get the effect you want. But a reasonable person is going to say, if you're drinking 12 drinks a night, it's going to cause ulcers and liver problems and weight gain and all these things. Why don't we make you more sensitive to alcohol? Let's do this. Let's taper down your alcohol for 3 weeks, right? And in 3 weeks, you go out and you have one drink and you feel good. You don't have to spend that huge bar bill.
Right.
Plus, you're healthier. So when people get more insulin sensitive, and that's one thing, a guy named Jason Fung, who's a doctor in Canada, he was doing all these talks on fasting and cutting out carbohydrates. And I didn't really get the point. But I reached out to him and I talked to him. I said, hey, doc, what are you talking about with this stuff? And he's a kidney doctor, and he was seeing all these diabetics with kidney failure, and he was frustrated.
Oh, wow.
And he was looking for ways to fix the problem. And so he says, look, if you have your new diabetic that comes in and their sugars are high, check their insulin level. I guarantee you it's going to be high if they're type 2. So they have really high insulin, but it's not working anymore. So if we can make us more sensitive to insulin, how do we do that? Exercise, sleep, stress, all these things we keep coming back to. And that's the basis of metabolic health. Because as we get older, when we're young, we can get away with stuff.
Right.
Especially it's very interesting. I've been really looking at the data with menopausal females. Pre-menopause, even if someone's 350 pounds, women aren't at increased risk because they're storing it all subcutaneously, because estrogen and progesterone tell you to store subcutaneous fat. But as we go through menopause, you can't store it there anymore, and it goes towards the belly. So a lot of women, as they get older, will get a bigger belly and skinnier arms and legs. But that's the visceral fat, which is pro-inflammatory, that causes all these things, increased atherosclerosis, heart attack, stroke. And you think, oh, we should fix that, right? Sometimes hormones help, but a lot of times if we decrease that visceral fat, the inflammatory markers go down, and joint pains get better, and mood gets better, and stress gets better. And you think, wow, it's pretty amazing how it all works. And so the more insulin and this goes back to the muscle point we talked about, the more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive you are, because if you're exercising, your muscles will take up sugar independently. So you're not reliant on insulin to be forcing it. But the fat tissue needs insulin to shove it in there.
Yeah.
So the lower insulin or the more even we can keep our insulin, the better we are metabolically. But again, I have continuous glucose monitors on patients. So I'll see people and all of a sudden I'll see their sugars go crazy. I'll go, what did you do on Tuesday? So, oh, I got an argument with my husband, or I had a stressful day at work, or I didn't sleep well the night before, and sugars go up from that.
And that'll spike it?
It'll spike it for
Really?
sure. Absolutely. So if I have diabetics whose sugars go out of control, they probably either have a urinary infection or some kind of an infection, or they're under major stress. 100% of the time, that's what I say. Or they're eating bad foods. But if they're not eating bad foods, it's either going to be stress or it's going to be some kind of underlying infection that causes that. But oh, it's incredible what we see with stress, the effects of stress on cortisol and insulin and all these kind of things. So that's one of the things is some of us could be so stressed about not messing up anything in our health that we're stressed, and that's causing just relaxing.
It's causing the issue.
Yeah, and we have data on that, just calming the nervous system down. And there's some remarkable data with regard to early childhood trauma, right? If people went through abuse as a kid, or they weren't breastfed, or they were not vaginally born, they were a C-section.
Correct.
They have way higher incidence of diabetes, hypertension, or being in an unstable family environment, growing up where your parents were in jail or drunk or fighting, or there was violence in the home. 20 years shorter lifespan just from that.
Really?
Yeah, because it sets you up for being highly stressed, and cortisol, insulin, all your hormones are out of whack your entire life. And there's other effects like the gut microbiome and things like that. But you realize, when we talk about autoimmune disease, 90% of people with autoimmune disease had a major life stress within 3 weeks to a month before that. And you realize how much of an impact stress has. Or it could be a stress of going through a major surgery, right? So it's just how much data we have that's solid science that's out there that we're not paying attention to. Right? Again, it's because most doctors are limited to a 12-minute appointment, and you can't talk about all these things. You don't have enough time, no matter how smart you are, even if you understand it, because it's time pressure.
And this is what you focus on mainly.
This is what I focus on a lot, because a lot of those things, we can take away medicines, right? That's what's amazing. When someone doesn't need blood pressure medicines because we calm their central nervous system down, get
less
them to
is better.
Even having a good attitude. You think about it. If I called you and said, hey, I need you to go work in the field all day today. We're going to be out in the heat, and I wake you up at 5 a.m, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be dragging, not be able to get out of bed.
Right.
But if I say, hey, someone's paying for us to go on a vacation to Jamaica, all expenses paid, like, okay, let's go. I'm wide awake. So many of us, the most common time for a heart attack is Monday morning, because people are stressed going to work. They ate too much over the weekend. And it's a perfect storm. And also during the holidays, right before Christmas is the key for heart attacks, because you're not exercising. You're out of your element. You have all this stress. You're shopping, and everyone's out of whack. You're not sleeping as much. And so all these things play a role for sure.
That's crazy. So many things I didn't even think to take into account. So I had one last question for you, and that is, how can people find your other podcasts that you're doing right now? Yeah,
it's on all major platforms. So Life's Best Medicine and Low-Carb MD. I'm on that one with Tro Kalasian, and Jason Fung was actually a co-founder with us. And so that one's the one talking mostly about nutrition. But we have scientists from all over the world. And so any major platform will be on there, and they both have their own website, lifesbestmedicine.com or lowcarbmd.com is the best way to find them. But any platform will have them.
Perfect. And then tell us your location one more time.
I'm in the Crossings in Prescott.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'm Megan McClanahan, and this is Brian. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to our next episode, and we will be kind of narrowing down some topics that we really feel are important.
Sounds good. I love anything you want to talk about. I'm here for you.
I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.